Action Network. I am Chad Millman, Chief Content Officer of the Action Network. We are continuing our division previews for the Favorites podcast, our betting previews. Today we're talking the NFC North. We got a very special guest, Rich Hribar from Sharp Football Analysis. We're going to dig into all of it. Me and my co-host, my BFF, my companion, my compadre, professional bettor, Simon Hunter. Hello, Simon.
Aloha, Chad. How we doing, brother?
Dude, I'm so good. So here's how I feel about the Bears right now. I said we're talking about the NFC North. This is how national the hype is for the Chicago Bears. And I'm going deep into sort of connecting the dots as both a super fan, but also as a very experienced journalist and a very experienced media executive whose goal is to acquire audience and convert you into doing something that you otherwise would not have done, right? Go to ESPN.com this morning, getting ready for the podcast, prepping a little bit. And I see that there's a story by Bill Barnwell. Barnwell is ranking players according to, are you going from Pro Bowl to superstar? Are you going from starter to Pro Bowl, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. On this list, he had Trevor Lawrence. He had Garrett Wilson, right? Superstar quarterback on a hot team, superstar wide receiver on the one team everybody cannot stop talking about, the New York Jets. The picture that they choose to put at the very top of the homepage is not Garrett Wilson. It is not Trevor Lawrence. It is a Chicago Bear. So you'd think, oh, well, it must be Justin Fields, because that's all anyone can talk about, right? There's so much hype around the Chicago Bears that instead of Garrett Wilson and Trevor Lawrence, ESPN decided they would bring people in with a different Chicago Bear in a Chicago Bear helmet, safety, Jaquan Brisker, second-year safety, who Bill Barnwell says will go from starter to Pro Bowl status this year. That's how hot the hype is around the Chicago Bears right now.
Yeah, this is almost as crazy as it was in, what was that, 2018, where Mitch Trubisky was the biggest bet at sports books for MVP at 50-1. So that we all know how that worked out for the Bears, right? So it's a scary time to be a Bears backer and better.
It might be time. It might be time to fade the Bears. That's all I'm saying. As a reminder, the Favorites podcast is proudly presented by Bet365, the world's favorite sportsbook brand. Sign up with promo code ACTION to get Bet365's exclusive sign-up offer. Bet $1 on any game and get $200 in bonus bets. Must be 21 or older. Offer is available in Colorado, New Jersey, Ohio, Virginia, and Iowa. Gambling problem? Call or text 1-800-GAMBLER. Let's welcome in Rich Hribar, Sharp Football Analysis. Rich, Warren Sharp sent me a copy of his massive Bible of a book to preview the NFL season. I've been poring over it. I've been doing my research in it for these division previews. Right now, it's open to a team from the AFC South for a different podcast that we've done. It's a great book, though, buddy.
No, I appreciate it. We pour a lot into that right after the draft, and it's always kind of a labor of love, but it's fun to kind of get on these shows and get to talk about some of the stuff we uncovered in that book.
All right. Well, look, we're talking
about.
I'll
say this before we go, Chad. I'll say the biggest value in that book, if people are thinking about buying it, is they go over which team has the better rest, right? So one team might be playing on a Monday night, and then the following week they're playing on a Sunday, compared to a team that might be coming off a bye week. So that's something that I think Warren really brought to the fore market of bettors, is that whole rest disparity. So, it's a big deal if you're catching a team at the right time. And I think last year he nailed it, where there are certain teams that, every week it seemed like they're playing teams off better rest. And that really did catch up. I think Colts were one of those teams that he predicted early in the year they were going to have a lot of issues because teams they were playing against had better rest. So that is – if you're a bettor, it's a big-ass book, but it is worth the time to check it out and read.
The Bears are one of those teams. The Bears are the only team in the NFL that do not play a team with a rest disadvantage in the entire season.
Don't want to hear that, Chad.
Strength of scheduled game timing, analyzing rest and prep inequality in the 2023 schedule. It's great. It's a great book.
It is.
The Sharp Football Analysis 2023 football preview. Really good. It gets you ready for the season. I got it, and before I could even open it, my 16-year-old was reading it, standing up at the kitchen counter. And kids these days, they don't read. So the fact he did it and was so excited, he was reading it while standing.
It's got a lot of pictures.
It's amazing. We have some of the top people, I assume, making these schedules. I assume a lot goes into it because of the minutia that has to make sure all these things are lined up. And to still see that the NFL doesn't look at because they clearly don't look at this from a balance perspective. Because once again, it's just completely lopsided. Teams like the Jets are completely lopsided in terms of favor schedule. Like the Rams play 4 teams coming off of a bye. The 49ers are negative 20 days and rest disadvantage. It's really wild, the disparity of some of this stuff.
It's great research, great analysis, really innovative and unique. Good stuff by you and Warren Sharp and the whole team. All right, let's get to it, by the way. NFC North, one of the most interesting, if we're talking about interesting divisions, we're talking about the NFC North. They've got the Bears, one of the most overhyped teams based solely on quarterback and the addition of DJ Moore. The Lions, one of the most loved teams from the past 2 years. The Vikings, a team primed for regression because of how many one-score games. I think they had 10 one-score games last year. And then the Packers, out of the Aaron Rodgers era into the Jordan Love era. This division is wide freaking open. Rich, of the division odds, Detroit plus 130, Minnesota plus 280, all at Bet365, Chicago plus 400, Green Bay plus 400. And the season win totals, 9.5, 8.5, 7.5, 7.5. What's your favorite bet? Of all of these, what is your favorite bet?
Packers plus 400 to win the division for sure is by far my favorite. Like you said, it's wide open. I believe the Lions have the 3rd lowest odds for a projected division winner. And the Packers, from a top-down perspective, they still have the best roster, the best complete roster in this division. Just a big question mark at quarterback, but they got really bad quarterback play last year. And, the bar is set really low for them to kind of have equal or maybe potentially even better. I'm not saying Jordan Love's going to be better than Aaron Rodgers' career, but 2022 Aaron Rodgers, that bar is wide open for him to be better than that. They're returning every player that played an offensive line snap for them. Just everything. And they're a team, when you look at LaFleur and how they structure their offense, this is a team that has one of the easiest schedules in the NFL. They have a good run game, good offensive line. They're just not going to play to beat themselves. And those are teams that always end up having more success than assumed. And like you kind of talked about, the Bears, people might just be a step ahead on them. The Lions, I totally get why they're there, and I'm excited about the Lions as well. But this is a team that still has a major questions defensively and being able to stop anybody. So I look at the Packers. I'm all in on the kind of throwing bullets at the Packers here.
All right. So let's start with the Packers. According to Sean Kerner's strength of schedule, the Packers have the 16th easiest, essentially their middle of the road. Jordan Love as a QB, fantasy QB in Sean Kerner's QB tiers, he's 7 in tier 7. 8th overall, you just mentioned it, Rich. 8th overall, 8th best offensive line overall. I have a lot of thoughts on this part. Simon, what is your take on Rich's idea that maybe Green Bay is the best bet for division winners and win totals for all 4 teams in this division?
I keep thinking of Jesse from Breaking Bad screaming, "They can't keep getting away with this." That's how I feel about Green Bay and their damn quarterback position. So you're telling me Green Bay is going to go from Hall of Famer Brett Favre to Hall of Famer Aaron Rodgers, and now Love is going to step in and be that next Hall of Famer? I can't do it, Chad. I can't believe in it. I can't put money on it. I got to fade Green Bay. And I think Rich, he made really good points of they are by far the most complete team in this division. They have the best offensive line. They have the best defense. They probably have the best 1-2 punch in the running back position. Their wide receiver core is graded out as my worst in football. They are bad. They have a bad wide receiving core. And if Jordan Love is that guy, that would be incredible for them. But we've seen history of these guys, first-time starters. Even Aaron Rodgers, his first time starting, I believe he was 6-10 as a starter his first season. It's just really hard to step in that kind of position in Green Bay with all that history. I mean, any normal person would fall underneath that weight. And there's nothing against Jordan Love for that. He's literally following up Aaron Rodgers, who's one of the greatest quarterbacks we've ever seen. I think that's a bit too much to put on this kid's shoulder. So it makes sense why Rich likes them, that they're probably, I would say most professional bettors I talk to, they like them. They like the upside of Jordan Love. This kid is a mobile quarterback with a really good arm. Like that's exactly what you want in football these days. You want a guy that can move outside the pocket, create his own plays. I just can't get behind it. I just think there is this team that I'll be on them next year after Jordan Love gets a year under him. I just don't see this kid being Patrick Mahomes. That's what you'd have to be for this team to be legit, right? Mahomes, he came off the bench. He played in a week 17. Then the following year, they got rid of Alex Smith to Washington. He stepped in, was I think the MVP his first year as a starter. I can't see that happen with Jordan Love. I just haven't seen anything from the kid to make me really think he'll take that next step. So to me, this team, they are one of the big, like the reason why we love football. They're one of the biggest question marks. Like no one knows Jordan Love's future. I don't know how Jordan Love's going to be this year. It's truly, you can throw out all the practice, all the film we've seen on him. It's his team now. So if I see him taking huge strides, maybe I'll check myself if I see him taking big strides in this preseason. But from the little stuff I've read and seen right now, it just seems like he's going to have growing pains, which every quarterback does their first year as a starter. It's just the natural progression of football. It's really, really hard to be good right out the gate. That's why Mahomes and Lamar are the unicorns. Like those kind of guys that first-year starter make MVP runs. It just doesn't really happen. So I'm excited for Jordan Love. I can maybe see them get over this win total, 7.5. That seems like a really fair number in this division where, again, they're the most complete team in this division. I have too many question marks about Jordan Love to really back him as we sit here early August.
All right, let me remind people, like this video, please. Subscribe to the Action Network on YouTube. 2 follow-ups here. First, the question mark for me, I get why everyone says this offensive line is so good, but David Bakhtiari is the guy who grades out as the best offensive lineman on this team. And do we have any concerns that even though he's come back from the knee injury, that it's a chronic knee injury that could be something that makes his availability inconsistent? Rich, I will start with you. Are we concerned that we're anchoring their status as one of the best offensive lines on a guy who has had consistent injury issues the past few years?
Well, I missed a third of the season last year already, and they were top 10 in both pass rush run rate and run blocking win rate. So it's kind of already cooked in, right?
Okay. Fair enough.
They also too, from a strength of a schedule analysis too, they faced our 32nd ranked pass rush schedule, which also factors into like, even if they are like kind of, let's say they take a step back, they're not as good offensive line as maybe we project. Bakhtiari's injured. They have some other injuries along the way, even though they were really snake bit last year up front. The pass rushes they're facing are extremely light this year on paper.
Rich kind of just told me I'm an idiot, but used stats to do it. Totally cool. He's a second-time guest in the last few weeks, so I guess he's earned that right. Spreading his wings a little bit. All good. Jordan Love. Rich says this team all around has the best roster, can get over any issues because Aaron Rodgers in the end wasn't that great. Simon is saying this team has the best roster, but Jordan Love is such a question mark. You can't rely on it. Why would I believe one over the other right now? Simon, you start.
I mean, that's a weighted question, Chad. You know, there's a bunch of things going to it. It's just I'm just playing the history of it, where a lot of what we do here, Chad, is playing percentages in the math. And we have never in the history of the NFL seen a team have 3 straight Hall of Famers at the quarterback position. It has never happened. So it might seem like it's boring and it's lazy work to say Jordan Love just won't pan out because the previous 2 quarterbacks are Hall of Famers. It can't happen, Chad. I can't wrap my head around it. I mean, I can't even imagine being a Chicago Bears fan who fucking hates Green Bay. If this kid works out, Chad, and Justin Fields doesn't work out, I might never ever see Chad again. That might just be it for Bears fans. I mean, it's just honestly, this offseason has been fun as hell because I feel like not that Bears fans have been quiet, but they're definitely puffing their chest out right now on social media. And the Green Bay Packers, they're doing it right back at them. They're being like, "You guys are our little brother." They're putting you guys in the locker right now. And they're just saying, "You don't get it." Like Jordan Love, we've seen it. We've seen it at practice. We've seen this team be different. We've heard the whole mood that this is his team now. So my big reason for not believing in Jordan Love is just because it's year one. I think coming from where he was in college, to where he's at now, I do believe he's made strides. But if you go and watch the film on him, he has a lot of questions right now. And that's my biggest issue with him. Like, I literally, before he came on the show today, I watched just a couple series of him playing against the Chiefs when he did start against them. It wasn't his fault. Again, he was just thrown into that game. But I have a lot of questions about Jordan Love right now. And I'm excited to see how they build the offense around him, where he is different than Aaron Rodgers, right? This kid can run the read option. He can run the ball. He's really, really gifted athletically. So that's what I think Rich and a lot of the pros that are taking a position on the Green Bay, it makes sense. They're literally back in the unknown because the value is there. If Jordan Love proves to be a good quarterback, doesn't even need to be great, just good, they could easily steal this division. Like we already talked about these other teams, a lot of question marks. So just from Rich's standpoint, I get where he's coming from, liking Jordan Love. I can't believe in it. I just, from what I've seen and what I've read, I don't think he's going to be that guy this year. I think maybe next year, but this year, I think he's going to struggle mightily in this offense.
Simon Hunter going against the grain. Rich is going with an interesting consensus take, if the consensus is a small group of people who do this professionally. Simon going with a iconoclastic take, which is against all of his professional colleagues, but potentially with the public.
Definitely with the public.
Yeah, that's interesting. All right. Glad we could break it down. Rich, I'm not asking you to answer because you probably just make me feel bad by ripping me or something.
No. I will say I don't want to sound like a Packers honk either. I think it's also a part of the bet is betting against the other 3 teams. So
could be, right? Well, let's talk about one of those other 3 teams. Going from the bottom up. We're going to go from the bottom up. So we'll do the Lions and Vikings last. The Chicago Bears. 4-1 to win the division. 7.5 is the season win total. Simon and I very bullishly, very enthusiastically bought Bears tickets to win the Super Bowl at 100-1, 80-1. As soon as they opened after the Chiefs won the Super Bowl. Dig a little deeper, and there's a lot of holes on this team, right? So a lot of questions on the offensive line. We just talked about the Packers having the 10th overall offensive line. The Bears offensive line total is 21st. They're ranked 21st according to PFF. And 80% of the line is new this year. Rookie, I think he's going to be playing right tackle. I think
or wide receiver.
What's that? A new wide receiver in DJ Moore.
I said or wide receiver. He's either your right tackle or your new wide receiver.
That's right. Joking back to the fact that our new rookie offensive lineman didn't realize he was doing the wide receiver workouts all season. So he's in great shape. And look, the Bears defensive line is 31st in the league, basically last in pressure rate when not blitzing, and last in sack rate on dropbacks without blitzes. Terrible defensive line that did not really improve on the edges in any single way. So
you didn't see who you guys signed this weekend?
We signed Yannick Ngakoue. I don't think that makes us all that much better on the defensive line.
Sure he does. I think he had more sacks than your entire team last year.
But our entire team's defensive line was terrible last year.
Yeah, now you just got better.
We got a little better. I said not all that much better, a little better. It's like saying it's like the difference between might and not including might when talking about the Seattle Seahawks having the greatest trio of wide receivers in NFL history.
Might or maybe.
Might or maybe. So, like, the Bears are great when you think about Justin Fields and DJ Moore and Jaquan Brisker. Less great when you think about every other position on the field. Rich?
Yeah, the Bears are very interesting because, you're in year 3 of Justin Fields, right? Like, it's a huge fulcrum point on Justin Fields' career. Like, he has the first year that's like a punt year. He gets like a bunch of experience. It's largely, pretty shitty experience, but hey, he's on the field. He's getting reps. Year 2 is like just a teardown year. You get a new GM. They just like cut all this salary, right? They just bled. I think they had like 95 million in dead cap space last year. They just purged the roster. And then, Justin Fields has to basically play with like this ragtag group from your rookie head coach, like all these things kind of go into place. Like this is like where we're going to start to get answers, right, on Justin Fields, because, here it is, year 2, year 3 rookie contract. And it all falls on him, right? Like we talked about this when I was on the show with you last time about Justin Fields and like where he has to clean up, right? Because it's one thing if you draft Darnell Wright, you add Nate Davis, like Fields himself has to not just be a quarterback that takes so many negative plays. We talked about it. I mean, he historically is the worst quarterback through 2 years of his career in taking sacks. That's something that's followed him through college. And it's not talking about just like an offensive line issue. I mean, he's been sacked on 32.5% of his pressures to start his career. The league average over that span is 20%. If you think about why this matters, I dropped all those stats in the last show, but the Bears themselves, and the Bears didn't, when Justin Fields wasn't sacked on a drive last year, the Bears were 12th in the NFL in points per drive. They were 11th in scoring rate per drive. When they did have a sack, they were 31st in points per drive, 29th in scoring rate per drive. Like, it is massive that he cleans this up. He gets rid of the football, and we'll see if he's able to, kind of really harness that, because this followed him in Ohio State too. It's easy to mask, when you're throwing to the talent that Ohio State had. So is that going to happen? Is that going to roll over this year? And then you talk about defensively, like, and like, I'm curious to get your guys' take on like Ryan Poles, because I don't think anyone like runs hotter or colder than him. I don't really know what to think about like this plan, because you have the Claypool trade last year. He gives up like the 32nd pick, a lot of equity. And then like you look at who the Bears signed this year. They're out here signing off-ball linebackers. Like, granted, like Tremaine Edmonds is a really good off-ball linebacker, but like, is this where this is like historically, like not where in modern NFL you allocate your money to, right? This is not where you put your money to. Like, you signed edge rushers, you signed edge protectors, you signed guys that can then play defensive back. So I'm really curious about like the top-down approach from the Bears in general. Like, if it's something I should believe in, or like this is something that's just like they're just kind of swinging away. Because the first year, his draft too, he drafted all old players. They just drafted nothing but like players that were like seniors, 4 years guys in college. Like, I don't know. I feel like Ryan Poles isn't looking at the right things.
Simon, I'll let you go first. I actually do have a lot of opinions on this.
Yeah, and all fair. Like, again, the Roquan Smith trade doesn't really make sense now. They signed all these linebackers. It was like you had a guy in-house who's your guy. The Ravens, who are a good organization, gave him a shit ton of money. So that right there, that's another stain on his mark. So I do think he nailed this draft this past year. Like moving that number 1 pick, getting a number 1 true receiver, arguably a top 5 receiver for Justin Fields. That's everything, right, to this offense. They needed that guy. Where we've seen Justin Fields throws an incredible deep ball. That's one of his biggest strengths. So, they got all the weapons around him. Me and Chad already talked about. There's no excuses for Fields this year. I don't care what your views of him were coming to the season, right? He's 5-20 as a starter. This is everything. It's like Jalen Hurts last year. It's a GM put this kid in the position with all these weapons to take the next step, and that's what we're looking for here with Fields. Like, if Fields, again, they're over under 7.5 wins. If he can't get that over, that's major red flags to this team. Like, this kid needs to take that next step especially in the sense they've improved this defense to me dramatically. Like they were arguably the worst defense in all of football last year. They went outside a bunch of guys. I don't know how it's going to work on the field, but they spent the money, right? They went out and got the linebackers. They're hoping that this DN, they add another DN to this team, because I'm with you, Chad. Like, the job's not done here. They need to add another piece of this defense. But, man, just talking upside, this is the team. This is the team. So wasn't shocked that me and you got 100-1, Chad, just because everything we just talked about, all the growing pains this team have. They're down to 50-1 now in most books. So it seems like the public has really jumped on board with this team. To me, they have the highest upside of any team just because we've seen these moments from Fields. Like, I just sticking out in my head, that Fields game in prime time where he went up to New England and he just took over. He played so well against a Belichick coach defense. I can't stop thinking about that, where I know this kid has all the tools there. He just needed the weapons. And, maybe I'm a year early, Chad. That is a fear here with this Bears team, that I'm a year early, because, this isn't it for Fields. Like, if he sucks this year, the Bears don't care. They're going to roll out the same team next year and hopefully improve a little bit next year. I mean, shit, you guys still have like $60 million in cap space to spend. There's a lot more growth to happen with this team. I can't get over the upside, how big it is for this team, where if this defense can just be better than they were last year, if they can turn the ball over, which was a big thing last year, they just couldn't get turnovers. That's huge to this Bears offense. So, I think Claypool and DJ Moore, those are two huge pillars to have on the outside. And with a guy like, Fields, who can throw the ball deep, I do think he'll take another step this year, Jed. So my favorite bet right now for this division is them at plus 400 to win this division, the over 7.5. I just think it's all there for this Bears team. And the only fear, Chad, for me right now is we're a year early. Like, if they don't take the step next year, could easily see them taking it next year. But I'm not going to wait to bet on it. I'm going to bet it this year just because I think it's all there for them to make a 10-7, 11-6 kind of run this upcoming season, just because last year they weren't as bad as their record showed. People they look at last year and they're like, well, look at all these issues they had. I think we both can agree there was a little bit of a tank there, right? I mean, there was a little bit of a tank there towards the end of the season. I can just think of when the Eagles played them. Remember when the Eagles played, Justin Fields missed, a quarter of the game, right? Because he had some type of injury. And then he came back and really ran and drove it down the field for a 2-minute drill and basically tied the game up. So there's just a lot going on there where I think too much is being made out of last year. And again, as someone that's heavily backing the Bears, Chad, everything I've seen this preseason is that Justin Fields is taking the next step. He's calling the plays at the line. He doesn't need the plays in his ear. He's calling the plays and making adjustments at the line. That's what I wanted to see. That's what I saw last year from Hurts before he took the next step. And that's what I'm seeing right now with Justin Fields. So I am way too overly excited about this Bears team. I'm trying to keep it tame, but it's all there for them. Obviously, the biggest question mark is that defense, Chad. We don't know how this team's going to be put together. It's just throwing together all these players right now. We don't know how they're going to be as a unit.
So Rich brought up Ryan Poles and how do we judge what he's done so far? Inherited Justin Fields. I thought the Bears brilliantly. Matt Eberflus and Luke Getsy last year, after a dreadful game against the Washington Commanders, had the bye week, saw, I think, what the Eagles were starting to do with Jalen Hurts, realized they had a similar player in Justin Fields, and really rebuilt the offense over that 2-week period, where it became much more about Justin Fields' playmaker, recognizing Darnell Mooney was hurt, wasn't the same player. They weren't getting the same production from the running game. So I think they learned so much last season about Justin Fields, and that's why there's so much enthusiasm. You can start to build a team around what his strengths are as he becomes a much better quarterback and doing the things you just mentioned, Simon. Mooney's ankle injury is better. He's recovered. He's faster. Remember, this is a sub 4.4 guy before he was injured. Claypool is the third option after Mooney and DJ Moore. Cole Kmet in the red zone. But you haven't built on the offensive and defensive line. And that's what you got to do to win in the NFL. I am going to be all over the Bears. I'm not denying it, but I am trying to temper my enthusiasm because I do worry about the moves like Roquan Smith And the inability to see, oh my God, this could be the anchor for the defense in the tradition of middle linebackers for the Bears. And instead you get rid of him in a team that, like you pointed out, Simon, is so good at judging character and talent, immediately gives this guy the bag. So I think the jury's out on Poles. Great move to trade down. I thought he did a really nice job, the assets he got. But at this point, with this quarterback and the cap space that he's had and the assets he's been able to acquire, they got to win the Super Bowl in the next 2 to 3 years.
Yeah, that's fair.
I like the Bears in a similar spot of the Jaguars were last year, where people were early on the Jaguars and they started out slow. I think if you really like the Bears on the level that Simon does, they're going to be a real value in season because the back half of their schedule is so good. Like I said, the Jaguars are very. I was hammering the Jaguars in like week 6, week 7 after they went to London and they looked terrible against the Broncos. To win the division still against the Titans because the two schedules were going to flip and the Titans had gotten banged up. I think the Bears are going to be a similar team where like their opening half is not necessarily daunting, but they're probably going to lose games like the Chiefs, early in the season. But I think in the back half of the year, like once they clear that Chargers game, like there's a lot of winnable games from the back half of the year. And we already said they have no games with the rest disadvantage.
Guys, Matt and Simon, listen to me. Fall is around the corner. We got pretty busy around here. We really do. That's why we're excited about our new sponsor, Factor, America's #1 ready-to-eat meal kit, who sent us ready-to-eat meals straight to our door. I got mine. You can guess, Simon. I got the veggie. I got the veggie meal. Matt, you listening? Because you've been a Factor guy for months, right?
Yes, I am a longtime Factor subscriber. I love the meals. I actually just crushed a shredded chicken taco bowl moments before this recording, as I do most days. Got 8 more in the fridge. I usually eat like an absolute savage, and Factor's been a very nice way to very quickly eat like a competent, employed adult and not have to feel like I'm starving myself either. So yeah, I'm a big fan of Factor.
You mean like I just had 2 carrots and a slice of cheese? I can do better than that when I get Factor. With Factor, skip the trips to the grocery store, skip the chopping, the prepping, the cleaning up too. Factor's fresh, never frozen meals are ready in just 2 minutes. So all you have to do is heat and enjoy, then get back to picking NFL winners. Head to factormeals.com/favorites50 and use code favorites50 to get 50% off. That's code favorites50 at factormeals.com/favorites50 to get 50% off. I cannot wait to dig in. Cannot wait. Matt has been raving about Factor for a while, and now we're lucky enough to have him as a sponsor. Guys, the Minnesota Vikings are plus 280, season win total of 8.5. Regression. I feel like your opinion of the Vikings depends on your opinion of the Lions and your opinion of the Bears. And I don't mean that to be like, well, that you can say that about every division, but you got to believe that those two teams are going to step up, and the Vikings, who just got so lucky last year so many times, will take a step back. Simon, even with Kirk Cousins, even with Justin Jefferson, even with the 8th easiest schedule according to Sean Kerner, even with well, that's really it. That's their highlights. Do you believe that they take a step back? Do you believe that they are a team that can compete?
I am happy to get burned by the Vikings again. I bet them to miss the playoffs last year. I think I was plus 160, plus 170. That was clearly a dumb bet. They ran away with this division. They were by far the best team in the division in the sense that they just could close out games. Even in games they were down, they always found a way to win. And, after watching that quarterback show, it gave me a new respect for Kirk Cousins. I mean, the guy,
I agree,
really does put the work in. Like it's pretty incredible how committed he is and how hard he knows he has to work. I mean, shit, Kirk might be like 35 now, 34. He's up there in age. He is, I mean, for a guy like him, his playing style, this is pretty much peak Kirk Cousins. Like he's really sharp mentally. He's got all the arm talent in the world. He can make all the throws. It's always been a question of Kirk being consistent. That's always been a problem with Kirk. He's inconsistent. And last year, he stepped up, man. I mean, he knew. You go back and watch a lot of their games. When he was in doubt or when he was in trouble, he just threw it up to Justin Jefferson. And that's what he should be doing. That's the best receiver in football. Like that's what, you look for in a quarterback position where, your back's against the wall. It's 3rd and 14. Throw it to your best guy. Live and die with your best guy. And that's what they really did last year. So, Chad, you nailed it. We just expect regression. They were, 10-0 in 1-score games? It's something crazy like that last year.
Including the greatest comeback in NFL history.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, which me and Chad, we still covered that Colts 3.5, but holy shit, was that a sweat. This is a team that, say what you want, I don't think they improved on their defense. I still think their defense, especially their secondary, has a lot of holes in it. And they're playing in a division now that, the Lions can throw the ball. We expect Justin Fields to throw the ball. Like these teams last year, Detroit still wasn't sure who the hell they were halfway through the season, right? They really hit their stride at the midway point once they really figured out that secondary on defense. The Bears just never found it, and Green Bay never found it. So the Vikings really had a nice spot last year, right, to run away with this division. I got them behind Green Bay and the Bears, right? So I'm taking an under on them. They're just a team that I can't get a read on, Chad. So I might get burned again by this Vikings team and Kirk Cousins because he just is that guy. But I think it's very telling that the Vikings haven't re-signed him either, right? This is his final year of his deal. They're not giving him the money that he thought he was going to get at this point. So definitely a make or break season for Kirk Cousins, this Vikings team. I'm going to think they fold underneath the pressure. I'm going to take that under 8.5.
I'm with you. I just don't. It defies all logic to bet on a team with a mediocre defense whose best edge rusher wasn't even signed to the team until the past week. They've gotten rid of their 4-time Pro Bowl running back, and they win so many 1-score games. You can't keep betting on a team like that. It's actually throwing bad money after bets, right? Like you're just making the wrong decision. Could get burned. Rich might tell us we're wrong. But I'm not going to be backing a Minnesota Vikings team that got so lucky in so many spots last year. I agree with you about Kirk Cousins in the quarterback documentary. I loved the guy. I thought he was just in the quarterback documentary. I loved the guy. I thought he was just honest and open and seemed lovely.
Yeah, like I viewed him. I think he's a douche, but he's a likable douche. Like he's the kind of guy that tucks his shirt. So. Yeah, well, you're a little bit of a douche, Chad. I mean, come on. So when I looked at Kirk, he just, him and his wife, they seem like really nice people, but I would lose my fucking mind hanging out with those two people. Like I just couldn't be further apart from these really nice, sweet Christians. But
listen, I'm not saying I want to hang out with them. I found him to be a little bit sort of corny and earnest, but I also found him to be authentically honest, right?
Yeah.
And I liked the way he talked about being totally bummed about not being invited to NFL honors, and then thinking, and then they're like asking him to do a sketch, and he's like, 2 hours ago I wasn't even invited. Now you got me singing on a stage, like.
That was
and
great.
So I just thought it was totally honest.
Like him singing in his school choir, like him and his little boy band group. Not shocked at all that Kirk Cousins sang in a doo-wop with 4 other guys. I mean, just he is very on brand.
Yes, it was completely on brand. Rich, opinions about quarterback or opinions about the Minnesota Vikings?
No, I'm in lockstep with you guys on this one. I mean, like you said, it's just anytime you see like a team just have this much of an anomaly and be so much of an outlier in not just 1-score games. I mean, this is a team that was 30th in the NFL in point differential quarters 1 through 3. Like they just needed like these immense like jailbreak situations to go their way. To live that way is so wild, right? To just like double down on that and say like this team was statistically one of the worst teams in the NFL quarters 1 through 3. And then just turned it on in like the fourth quarter when all like these when the game was literally just like wild West type stuff is crazy. You look at like this could be like a Derek Carr situation too. Like this team feels like they don't have both feet in the door with Kirk Cousins as the future, and I get it, he's 35 years old, But what if like they are in the tank? Like, does Kirk Cousins like not play at some point in the season like Derek Carr at the end of last year? Like that exists as a non-zero range of outcomes for this team. The defense is relying on just so many young players. I mean, and it's a bummer that a lot of their top draft picks just didn't get a chance to play last year, like Lewis Seen and Andrew Booth, but like they're coming in very raw again this year. Are they gonna be able to stop anybody? They lose, an interior, run stopper and Dalvin Tomlinson. They lose to Darius Smith. It's just a lot to go against this team, and their schedule to like on our end doesn't look like that easy at all. I mean, sure, you get Tampa Bay to open, but then they go at Philadelphia on prime time. That went really well for them last year. You play the Chargers, you went at Carolina, then the Chiefs. They play at Chicago after that, a team we just talked about. Then they play the 49ers at Green Bay, at Atlanta against the Saints. Like, those are their opening 10 games. At Denver after that, like, I mean, there is not a lot to like here on paper. Like, even if you don't want to outright fade the Vikings, like, I don't see how you bet on them.
Did you guys see the movie Oppenheimer?
Mm-hmm.
Remember in Oppenheimer, they said there's a non-zero chance they could literally blow up the world if they release the nuclear bomb. So whenever I hear someone use non-zero chance, and I hear it more than you would think, given all the nerd-tastic people we work with, Simon, I now think of a non-zero chance that Oppenheimer was telling Einstein we could blow up the world.
You just hear Matt Damon in your...
Yeah, Matt Damon, who was the colonel or the general that he was explaining it to. Listen, you guys have heard us talk about Game Time so often on this podcast, the fastest growing ticketing app in the United States. I love Game Time. You know I do. Honestly, I use it all the time. And if you're looking to get out to a pro or college game this week or even a concert, Game Time has amazing last-minute deals on tickets to all of these. I'm actually opening the Game Time app right now from my house here in Connecticut. This Friday night, I can get into a New York Football Giants game for less than $10. That sounds like a party to me, no matter where you live. Download the Game Time app, get out and have some fun this week. You deserve it. And you can redeem code favorites for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, just download the app and enter code favorites for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. We're fading the Minnesota Vikings, which leaves us with the Detroit Lions plus 130. Rich, the total is 9.5. It's minus 130 at Bet365 to bet the over. You mentioned it. They have amongst the shortest odds for any team in the NFL to win their division. We're not going to bet the Lions at plus 130.
It's tough because I'm excited about the Lions, right? Like I like a lot of what the Lions did. Dan Campbell's like a fun guy to root for. Everything that Ben Johnson, has put on basically his resume looks amazing. I mean, you look at the Lions; they were third in the NFL in yards per drive. They were fourth in scoring rate per drive, fourth in touchdown rate per drive, third in punt rate per drive, second in turnover rate per drive. They went basically as Jared Goff turning the ball over or not. They were 9-1 in games they won the turnover battle, 0-6 in games they lost the turnover battle. This is a team that basically don't beat themselves. And you saw like the youth stuff, right? Like we talked about this with the Bears, right? Like the Bears are probably in the same trajectory the Jaguars last year, where you start maybe below where the market has you and you finish strong. That's what the Lions did last year. They ended up finished the season real strong. They had less penalties, like the final 8 weeks. They were one of the least penalized teams the final 8 weeks of the season. So all these things are building up for them, but they still do have a lot of questions too. I mean, this is statistically out. If it wasn't for the Bears last year, would have had the worst defense in the NFL, basically in every metric that you can look at. This is a team that still has a ton of issues in the back end of the secondary. They did, obviously Aiden Hutchinson was a hit, but they still have pass rush issues. And they're one of the few teams in this division, because of where they finished last year, they actually ended up getting a little bit of a harder draw this year than some of the other teams that we talked about. I mean, obviously you open at Kansas City, but they play Seattle, Atlanta, at Green Bay. This is a team that has 3 Thursday games this year, which is a weird anomaly for a season because you open the year on Thursday. They always play on Thanksgiving. They get another Thursday game sandwich in there, I think, in week 4 at Green Bay. There's just like a lot of weird things in place here where it's like they're kind of a darling, but like they have so many holes. Like they're really a hard team to like say, like, I expect them to like absolutely outright crush too. I like a lot what they're doing. I feel very positive about the direction they're moving in, but I do feel like a lot of people are treating them maybe like a tier above where they actually are.
Middle of the pack schedule in terms of strength of schedule ranking, according to Sean Kerner. You can see those at actionnetwork.com and the Action Network app. According to PFF, fifth best offensive line in the NFL. And I mentioned that Barnwell story on ESPN.com where he was rating tiers of players who are going to go from Pro Bowlers to superstars. Three guys on that list: AJ Terrell, cornerback from the Falcons, Trevor Lawrence from the Jags, Penei Sewell, offensive lineman for the Lions. Simon, last year you were way ahead of the Lions. We were both way ahead of the Lions. But one of the reasons you love the Lions last year was because you thought their offensive line was grading so high. And I think you were ahead of the rest of the fandom, media, punditry on the Lions offensive line. But do you go into this season as enthusiastic about the Lions?
Yeah, definitely had a blind spot last year to that defense. I was so heavy on the Lions. I just was like, okay, their defense can just be middle of the pack, even 20-25, they could easily make a playoff run. Unfortunately, they were like 30-32. They were just bad. So that is the big question this year. It's like, there's no value here on this team, Chad. We're looking at a team that what was that stat I saw? I think it might be the first time they have a sold out season tickets in like 30-40 years. It is peak right now, which blew my mind because that's Stafford, Calvin Johnson.
We need the Lions to do well. We need the Lions to do well for our soul because we love the NFL with Dan Campbell as a head coach. I think he's brilliant. I think he plays against type. Everyone thinks, oh, tight end, meathead, muscle guy. I think he is so smart. He knows the game so well. He plays to their strengths. This team got better when he decided a couple years ago to do the play calls. Really boring game plan, but it fit what they were trying to do. I need this team to do well so Dan Campbell can continue to have a job.
Yeah, he is football. Like when someone's like, show me a picture of football, he's one of those guys you would show a picture of. Like, this is what football looks like, this kind of guy. So I'm there with you on that one. On paper, I think it's all there. Their offense is incredible. Like there'll be no shock to anyone that this team will finish in top 10 in either rushing or passing yards or anything like that. Like Jared Goff has looked incredible this preseason in their practices that I've seen, right? He has a really good repertoire with this wide receiving core. I mean, Amon St. Brown is, I don't know. Some people have him penciled as a top 5, top 8 wide receiver right now. Like they're expecting big things from this team. Yeah. So, I love it. I love that it's all there, Chad, but I think Rich nailed it. Like I got so many questions about their defense still. And I don't love their schedule. I think that the NFL didn't do them any favors putting them in so many weird primetime games just because it's rare the NFL has had this opportunity with the Lions. Like, this is a big market that is now good. They want to take advantage of that. So, don't love it, Chad. The 9.5 is a little scary, too. I got them at 9-8, right? I think that's a fair number for this team where I do think they're going to win some games. But Rich also talked about they have a hard schedule. So, I'm sorry to dampen Detroit fans. I mean, they don't care. They're all in. They're all hyped up. They're probably going to be like, you guys are Bear homers anyway. But to me, that's where the value is in this division. I think the Bears, to me, are the value. I think Rich, he thought it was Green Bay. You're not going to hear too many pros say, no. The Lions, that's where the value is in this division. Plus 130? Come on, sports books. This should be plus 170, plus 180. Like, there's no way I think this team is an easy pick to win this division. There's just too many questions on this team. So, I won't be taking their over, won't be betting their division odds, won't be betting their Super Bowl odds. But in season, I can already tell, Chad, we're definitely going to be taking this Lions team. They're going to have great matchups, different points of the year where, if they're 4-5, 4-6, people are going to be pissed off. They're going to be leaving them for dead. That's where me and you step in, Chad. Like, those are our favorite teams that people are leaving them for dead when we know the talent's still there. Nothing's changed. And we saw last year, this team improved every week, and that's what you're looking for from their head coach. So, sorry to say it, the Lions fans, you're overvalued right now. Like, even you guys know you guys are overvalued right now. So that's the thing. You just got to rein people in here. Like, again, we're not shitting your team. Won't be shocked end of the year if you guys win this division. You are a playoff team, but I just don't think the value is there. So this is a team I will be taking a small bet on their under. Won't touch any of their divisional odds at this point.
Rich, we're living in a world where the Detroit Lions are all of a sudden overvalued.
That's the NFC, baby. That's the NFC life. I mean, it's because hard. You just look at the NFC, and it's just the way it is, man. It's wide open.
All right, folks. Recap, best bets. Rich likes Green Bay at plus 400 to win the division. Simon likes Chicago at plus 400 to win the division and the Bears over. I have also bet heavily on the Bears over, and I have also bet heavily on the Bears when it was 100-1 to win the Super Bowl. I will end the podcast with this. Sean Kerner, the most accurate fantasy projectionist between 2019 and 2021, according to Fantasy Pros, top 5 last year, along with Chris Hribar, 2 of the top 5 doing projections for Action Network, said this about Justin Fields, who is in his tier 2 for fantasy quarterbacks. Finished QB5 in points per game in 2022 with a terrible offense and inconsistent compliments. That's me. The quote from Kerner: better chance of finishing as QB1 overall than Justin Herbert or Joe Burrow.
For fantasy football.
For fantasy football.
Yeah.
Yeah, fantasy football.
Yeah. We cover it all here on the Favorites podcast, which, by the way, is proudly presented by Bet365, the world's favorite sportsbook brand. Sign up with promo code ACTION to get Bet365's exclusive sign-up offer. Bet $1 on any game and get $200 in bonus bets. Must be 21 or older. Offers available in Colorado, New Jersey, Ohio, Virginia, and Iowa. Gambling problem? Call or text 1-800-GAMBLER. Simon and I want to thank Rich Hribar of Sharp Football Analysis. Go get the Sharp Football Analysis 2023 preview. It is brilliant. You cannot be a serious football fan without getting this book. For Simon Hunter, I am Chad Millman. This has been the Favorites podcast presented by Bet365, part of the Action Network. Download us from Spotify, Apple Podcasts. Rate, review, subscribe. Also, don't forget, by the way, like this video and subscribe to the Action Network YouTube page. Until next time, love you.